Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you're here on this warm Tuesday evening when we're starting the book of Numbers. Let me open with prayer first. Oh, Father God, thank you for the evening. Thank you for this intrepid group of people that come out and study your Torah. And I'd ask that you'd bless us. I know that you bless people that study your Torah, and we're being diligent about it, Father God. So just impart your wisdom to us. Help us to understand a little more who you are, how much you love us, how you'd like us to behave. And I just thank you, Father God, for this time together. In Yahushua's name, amen. So tonight we're starting the book of Numbers. And the Hebrew name for the book of Numbers is Bamidbar. Bamidbar. So who knows what Bamidbar means? In the wilderness. In the wilderness, right? Bamidbar is in the wilderness. So I've got the Torah, the study guides for Numbers back there. You're welcome to them. They're $10. If you can't afford it and you will use it, you're welcome to take one. But don't just take one and have it sit around at home. They cost about that for me to make them. Here comes the late David Shear. That's okay. We'll give it to you, Dave. It's all right. Anyway, like I say, I'll make more books if I need to, but if you will use them, the idea is they're very simple. You read the passage it tells you to read, and then you answer the questions. And the questions aren't deep. Sometimes they have easy answers. Sometimes you can't figure out what I'm talking about, and that's okay. Sometimes they don't have one specific answer. But the idea is if you've read the passage and then you answer the questions, then you've really thought about it. Because I don't know how many times you read through it and you say, yeah, I got that. You just move right along. And you really need to sit, and that's part of what we do here, is by discussing it, we make sure that we really both got the same understanding, or we all have the same understanding, and whenever it's different, we try to thrash out the differences. A lot of times we can't, and that's okay too. But anyway, I just wanted to let that. Then also, if you want, you can go to TorahTogether.com, the website, and you can order the books. I'm saying that primarily for people on the internet. Let's see. Before we get started, you remember I think it was last week, yes. We looked at this little 7-minute video about the book of Leviticus, that was a narration over a bunch of drawing that went on and ended up with this poster. I found that very interesting. Mark also obviously found it interesting because he showed it during Shabbat. But anyway, we have the same thing by the same people for the book of Numbers. And I was wondering if you guys wanted to watch that. Like I say, it's only 5 or 7 minutes. It's not a big deal. But we're a democratic group, and I thought if everybody says, no, I don't want to waste the time, we wouldn't do it. But I don't think it's quite as good as the one on Leviticus, but it's good. Yeah, John? Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. There's at this particular one, at the end, there's a little blurb by the two guys that are doing this. This is called the Bible Project. So if you want to know more about it, you can go on the internet to thebibleproject.com and learn more about it. But at the end of this, I'll let them go ahead and play their little commercial, which tells you a little bit about them. They're not Hebrew roots oriented, but that's okay. What they're committed to is the fact that the whole Bible is a unified thing. And boy, right there is a step in the right direction. That's the way a lot of people start down this road, is by coming to recognize that. So anyway, with that in mind, I'll go back and I'll widen the screen and we'll watch that.
The Book of Numbers gets overlooked, partly because it has a really boring name.
Which is a shame. In the Hebrew tradition, the book's name is Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. And it's an epic travelogue about Israel's journey through the desert on their way to the land promised to Abraham.
Now, this pilgrimage should only take about 2 weeks on foot.
But instead, it takes them about 40 years.
That's crazy. It's practically half of someone's lifetime.
Yeah, it's a very long camping trip with lots of interesting stories, but Let's remember, it's most helpful to back up and start with how this book is designed.
Right.
So the book is broken up into 5 sections. There are 3 wilderness locations, broken up by 2 road trips that link all the pieces together.
The first wilderness section is Mount Sinai, right here on the map.
And then in the second section, they travel to a region called Paran.
A whole bunch of things happen here in the wilderness of Paran.
And then in this 4th section is Israel's road trip to Moab.
The book ends with a large section in the wilderness of Moab, right across the Jordan River from the Promised Land.
Now, through all of these sections, the storyline just flows like a gripping dramatic movie. Everything starts great, but then the trip goes horribly wrong, and it all ends with the final redemptive moment, the surprising act of God's grace.
So let's jump into this story. It all begins at the wilderness at Mount Sinai, and we've become really familiar with this mountain.
Yeah, if you remember, Israel came here after Egypt, and they formed a covenant with God here, got the 10 Commandments here, built the tabernacle here, and they've been at this mountain for 1 full year.
And now they take a census to number the people as they prepare to leave.
Right, and they're given these instructions for how to organize all those people in the camp. God's presence in the tabernacle, and then the tribe of Levi and the priests around it, and then the rest of the tribes around them. And this pattern, it's this visual symbol for how God's holiness is at the center of their existence as a people.
And they're told that when the cloud of God's presence moves, they're to pack up and travel with it.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant is carried by the Levites out in front, and then the tribe of Judah, and on and on. And this order is also a symbol for how God's holy presence is their leader and guide through the wilderness.
We begin the second section of the book with enthusiasm as they leave Mount Sinai and travel up to Paran. God's with them, everything's organized. This is going to be great.
But it's not great. After just 3 days on the road, the people are complaining about their hunger and thirst, and then even Moses' brother and sister start bad-mouthing him in front of all the people.
Not a great start. But now we're into the third section, the wilderness of Paran. This is where they send the 12 spies to scout out the Promised Land. 2 of those spies come back, and they're really optimistic.
But the other 10 are freaked out, and they don't trust God, and they go around saying, we're going to get annihilated in there. And so they start a mutiny, and they try to appoint a new leader who's going to take all the people back to Egypt. And so basically, they are refusing to go into the Promised Land, and God honors their choice. He says that this generation is going to wander for 40 years and die in the wilderness, and only their kids will get to enter the Promised Land.
You know, this story here gets brought up many times in the Bible by different authors.
Yeah, and it always serves as a reminder that while God remains faithful to his people and his promises, he will honor their choices. He'll let them waste their whole lives if they choose to live in rebellion.
Okay, so the trip's been a disaster so far.
And it gets worse here in this 4th section as they're traveling to Moab. Even Moses has a moment of rebellion and is disqualified from entering the Promised Land. Then there's another rebellion among the people. It results in this snake attack. And what makes all these rebellions even worse is that every step of the way, God has been providing. He's been offering forgiveness. He's been giving them food and water and this crazy stuff called manna.
Yeah, what is that stuff?
Yeah, no idea. But in spite of all this, they keep complaining, and they say that they wish they had died in slavery in Egypt.
If I was God, I would just give up on these guys.
You would think. But that's what makes this story in the final section so surprising. Israel has just arrived in Moab, and the king of Moab, he's freaked out that this huge group of people is traveling through his land. So he hires this pagan sorcerer named Balaam to pronounce curses on them.
This guy means business.
Yeah, and so Balaam, he says, okay, I'm going to pray to the Hebrew God, and let's see what happens. And 3 different times he attempts to curse them, but each time he finds that he can utter only blessing. Most surprising is the last blessing, where he prophesies that out of Israel will rise a victorious king. And this king is somehow going to be connected to God's promise to Abraham to bless all nations through this family. So here's Israel rebelling down in the camp, totally unaware that up in the hills, God is protecting and even blessing them.
The book ends here in Moab. Israel's getting ready to go into the Promised Land. They count up everyone again, just like at the beginning. They're leaving the old generation behind, including Moses.
But before they leave Moses, he gives them his last words of warning and wisdom. And that speech is what the next book, Deuteronomy, is all about.
This video was funded by 756 people, just like you, gave a few bucks to make it happen. Thank you so much. 500 of those are monthly supporters. which is incredible. We're going to get through this whole project because of you.
We think the Bible is one grand unified story, and so we're making videos about each individual book of the Bible, showing you how it's designed and how it fits into the overall story.
We also make theme videos where we take a biblical theme and we trace that idea from the beginning of Scripture all the way to the end.
We're a nonprofit, and we want to give away all these videos for free, and you are helping us do that. You can go to our website, jointhebibleproject.com. You can give a one-time gift. You can sign up to become a monthly supporter. And you can also help us by just sharing the videos online through social media.
You can go to our website. You can download full resolution versions of these videos, download study guides, posters. It's all for free. Jointhebibleproject.com. The book of Numbers gets overlooked, partly because it has a really boring name.
Which is
to show you something that, sometimes the best laid plans and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you caught during the presentation, but it showed a map and showed them wandering around in the Sinai Peninsula, which is the traditional location for Mount Sinai. But I know of at least two other possible locations for Mount Sinai, or at least, let me say, journeys across the Red Sea, both of which are probably more accurate than the fact that Mount Sinai is in the Sinai Peninsula. And I thought I'd present some maps to show that, but I'm not able to do that very well. Okay, here's one of them. This is the traditional view, is that Mount Sinai is, do you see down, oh man, that right there. Anyway, that's where they think it is. Now, that got named as Mount Sinai by Constantine's mother. Okay, Constantine lived in like 300 AD. So whether or not that's Mount Sinai is debatable. The other two places for it, it's one, essentially. It's over here in Midian. My picture keeps a big thing that says Midian. Midian is on the northwest corner of the Arabian Peninsula. This is yet another version. And there's several reasons why Mount Sinai is probably in the Arabian Peninsula. One of my favorite ones is where in one of Paul's letters, he talks about he went to Mount Sinai in Arabia, and he calls it in Arabia. So that's one of them, and there's other good reasons too. But okay, I didn't understand exactly what you said.
You show the first one,
Yep.
and I think it's on the second one side.
Okay, let's see, that one? That one's one of my favorites.
Can you go back to that other map? Isn't that where they found, or the one where you have them crossing at the upper point of the
Uh-huh. Yep, that's that one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Isn't that
I can't do
where-
this, it's doing it on its own. I'm not doing this. Go ahead.
Okay. Isn't that where they actually now found like chariot?
Yep, but they claim to have found them down here as well. There's another version of the story that has them crossing down there. It's called the Straits of Tiran, down there at the bottom of the Gulf of Aqaba. Let's see, this next map will show it. Right down there, see how it's at the south end? And they also say they found chariot wheels down there too. So you don't know who to believe. I don't know what to think. All I wanted to do to point this out was to say that the location of Mount Sinai is not well established in everybody's mind. And I think you need to keep a little open mind about it. But I think for me, my own personal opinion, the chances are greater that it's not in the Sinai Peninsula than that it is. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I just wanted to do that. These are both little details that I thought we'd just kind of get out of the way before we actually start the book of Numbers. Now that we're done with that, you could just turn that off, John, since you're standing around back there. I think I'll just turn the whole thing off because don't need it anymore. Are there any questions about any of that stuff? Any of those things? I shouldn't say that stuff. Any of the video? That was kind of entertaining, wasn't it? And you got a little flavor for those guys with their little sales pitch at the end. They're okay guys, So why do you think they gave it the name Numbers, the book of Numbers? Beg your pardon?
You mean the English name?
Yeah, the English name.
Census?
Census, yeah. Turns out that the beginning of the book of Numbers, several chapters in the beginning of the book of Numbers, is them counting all the people, all the nation of Israel at the time. And then at the end of the book of Numbers, they do it again. So they have lots of numbers in the book of Numbers. So that's why I got that name. Any thoughts before we start? Okay, so this first chapter is ready-made for people that like to pronounce Hebrew names. Is there anybody that would like to read it because they enjoy pronouncing? Oh, that's great, Lisa. Well, okay, I'm going to be checking on you, and you all know that I'm perfect about it. So if you make a mistake,
Okay.
I'll tell you.
Okay, don't you worry about it. Well, if I make a mistake,
We have
oh,
tomatoes.
good. Okay, good. Throw them.
read through the end of verse 46.
Okay. On the first day of the second month in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying, "Take a census of the whole Israelite community by clans of its ancestral houses, listing the names every male head by head. You and Aaron shall record them by their groups from the age of 20 years up. All those in Israel who were able to bear arms associated with you shall be a man from each tribe, each one the head of his ancestral house. These are the names of the men who shall assist you. From Reuben, Elizur, son of Shedeur. From Shimeon, Shemiel, son of Surishadai. From Yehuda, Nashon, son of Aminadab. From Issachar, Netanel, son of Tuar. From Zebulun, Eliav, son of Helon. From the sons of Joseph, from Ephraim, Elishama, son of Amihud. From Manasseh, Gamliel, son of Pedazur. From Benjamin, Avidon, son of Gideoni. From Dan, Ahiezer, son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel, son of Ochran. From Gad, Eliasaph, son of Duel. From Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. Those are the elected of the assembly, the chieftains of their ancestral tribes. They are the heads of the contingents of Israel. So Moses and Aaron took those men who were designated by name, and on the second day of the second month, they convoked the whole community, who were registered by the clans of their ancestral houses. The names of those aged 20 years and over being listed head by head. As Yahweh had commanded Moses, so he recorded them in the wilderness of Sinai. They totaled as follows: the descendants of Reuven, Israel's firstborn, the registration by their clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, head by head, all males 20 age and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Reuven, 46,500. Of the descendants of Shimeon, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, their enrollment as listed by name, head by head, all males aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Shimeon, 59,300. Of the descendants of Gad, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house, as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Gad, 45,650. Of the descendants of Yehuda, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house are listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Yehuda, 74,600. Of the descendants of Issachar, the registration of the clans by their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Issachar, 54,400. Of the descendants of Zebulun, the registration of clans by their ancestral house as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Zebulun, 57,400. Of the descendants of Joseph, of the descendants of Ephraim, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Ephraim, 40,500. Of the descendants of Manasseh, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Manasseh, 32,200. Interesting. Of the descendants of Benjamin, the registration of clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Benjamin, 35,400. Of the descendants of Dan, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Dan, 62,700. Of the descendants of Asher, the registration of the clans by their ancestral house, as listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Asher, 41,500. Of the descendants of Naphtali, the registration of the clans of their ancestral house is listed by name, aged 20 years and over, all who were able to bear arms. Those enrolled from the tribe of Naphtali, 53,400. Those are the enrollments recorded by Moses and Aaron by the chieftains of Israel, who were 12 in number, each man to each ancestral house. All the Israelites aged 20 years and over, enrolled by the ancestral house, all those in Israel who were able to bear arms. All those who were enrolled came to 603,550. Is
Okay.
that as far as you wanted me to go, right?
Yeah, yep. Let's talk about that for a while. First of all, it seems rather boring, huh? But there's some stuff in there. When did this census take place? Yes. It's first day of the second month of the second year, I think. But that's fine. Okay. So how long had it been since they left Egypt? A year and a month. Just checking. So where had they spent most of this time? Almost all of it.
Mount
Where are
Sinai?
they now?
Mount Sinai?
Yeah, they're at the foot of Mount Sinai. So they've spent all this year, basically, messing around, going back and forth up and down the Mount Sinai to get and replace broken tablets. And, they've constructed the tabernacle, and they've learned how not to do things in the tabernacle. And they've done a whole bunch of stuff. It's been a busy year, really, right? So why do you think God ordained this census? Why do you think he asked that this be done? John?
Well, it's kind of interesting that the way he counted was with a token, with a coin, right?
Yes, well, yes. But why do you think he did it?
Well, to me, you count stuff that's yours.
That's a good thing. That's a fair point.
I mean, that's kind of what got David in trouble, I think.
Well, yeah, but...
He did twice, he did a census, and one time he got in trouble.
Yep.
And I think it was because it was almost like, well, I'm going to count my soldiers.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Lisa.
I was thinking too that he's counting too how many all these tribes were the ones that were given an apportionment of the land, and so he's counting, to see, not that he didn't know, but to
Yeah.
to just have them be accountable, to when they go into the land, they're
Yeah.
going to be the ones to
Yeah,
fight.
that's fair. It's a record. It's literally a census. It's a record, right? It's a record of who all's there. Well, there's a clue for the answer I was fishing for based on who did they count? Who specifically did they count? They counted men
Of military
over
age.
20 who were able to fight. So they counted potential soldiers is who they counted, right? And the reason you're referring to why David got in trouble is it was very common practice, whether he was in Israel or any other country back then, if you were thinking about going to war, the first thing you did was you counted your troops. I mean, it only makes sense because even back then they realized, well, I got twice as many soldiers as you do, so I'll probably win. Okay? So doing a census was typically done before going to war. And the reason God got upset with David was because David was anticipating going to war without consulting God. And God says, you don't go to war without my permission or approval, if you will.
He got ahead of his skis.
Yep, they're ahead of his skis. That's a good way to put it. So the whole idea of doing a census back then was in preparation for war. So it had to do with military kinds of things, which you can tell by who was counted, right? So what was the grand total, more or less? 600 and 602,000, right? 603,000, okay. And that's men,
550.
yeah, that's men over 20, probably, under 70, and not women or children under 20. Right? So you can make kind of a swag at how many people you think were in the nation of Israel at the time. What do you think? Well, yeah, but that's anecdotal. What would you think? I'm looking for the
Minimum
math. I'm a
five-
math guy here,
Minimum five each, so 3 million each. Minimum 3 million.
You think it's 3 million?
Minimum. 3
Minimum. Well, see, I figured it was a minimum of about 1.2, but that would be not having any kids. So it's more or less, it's certainly, but I think it's between 2 and 3 million. I'm just blabbing here, but it's just something to think about. So 2 or 3 million people. One of the thoughts I've always had was
It's something that would kick up a lot of dust as you go across the desert.
exactly, that's a lot of people. And I got to thinking, are these numbers even reasonable? And I still struggle with that personally a little bit. But I got to thinking about it just today. Do you know how many people fit in the Rose Bowl when it's full?
100,000?
100,000. The Rose Bowl is a good number. Yeah, that's an easy one to remember. And we can envision the Rose Bowl. We've all seen it on television on New Year's Day. It's a big darn thing. But when it's full, there's 100,000 people in there. So that would be, for the 602,000, that'd be 6 Rose Bowls. And so for the couple of million, what is that? That's 10, 15, maybe 20 Rose Bowls, something like that. But how long does it take, for example? I mean, the Rose Bowl fills up, they play their football game, and it empties out all within the space of probably 6 or 8 hours, right? So I guess these numbers aren't that. How long did it take them to cross the Red Sea? It was overnight, right?
It did.
They started and they went overnight. So it's reasonable. These numbers they're not just stupid. They're reasonable numbers, although they're big if you ask me. Yeah.
What percentage of them are native Israelites?
That's a really good question. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, unless they're breeding like rabbits, it's only 3 generations back to, if you look at Moses, but that's kind of an exception because he was so old, and so it could have been at least 5 generations back.
So what you mean from Jacob?
Right.
So Jacob took 70.
How many generations back to Jacob from Nachshon is there?
I don't know, 3 or 4.
I would
Yeah.
think more like 5 or so.
Yeah.
But
Okay, whatever.
So 12.
Yep. 70 people to 3 million, let's say. Something
Yeah.
like that.
So how do you do the 5th root of that?
Oh, I don't know about that. That's a very good interest. But what you're saying is it
Well,
looks
it could
like
be a large percentage of them. It could be over half of them. Maybe even the majority of them are mixed multitudes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just to finish the story, and I'm sure everybody probably already knows this anyways, those mixed multitudes came from the people of Egypt who were watching what went on between God and Pharaoh during the time of the plagues, and basically said, boy, we're no dummies. We can see who's on the winning side of this deal. And when Pharaoh finally relented and said, fine, go, take your people and get out of here, there were probably a large number of Egyptians that said, hey man, wait for me. I'm going with you.
There probably could have been a lot of Egyptians who built a relationship with Israel the whole time that
They were there.
in Egypt.
Yeah.
Just like
Good point.
Eleazar, for
Yep.
example.
Absolutely.
That he had a big Abraham was a family of 3.
Yeah.
But he had an entourage of 300.
By the time it was all done, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. I think people that have, let's see, I'll just say this and it kind of hangs out there for everybody to argue with, but the people that kind of have a sense about God, that God might be, they have some sort of spiritual sensibility, would probably recognize in people like Abraham or Moses or almost all of the Israelites that these guys have got something that, that we don't with Osiris and all these Egyptian gods, and so maybe they were inclined that way. Anyway, point being, the 2 or 3 million people were composed of more than just Israelites. Yes? No, the question is, does it say what tribes they were absorbed into? It does not say. As a matter of fact, it's, you can infer a couple of things. One of the things you can infer is from stuff like, it's all anecdotal stuff, but the one that first comes to mind is when David was having his fling with Bathsheba, and Bathsheba was married to Uriah the Hittite. Now, Uriah the Hittite was not an Israelite because it was a Hittite. And so they a lot of times maintained their identity as non-Israelites whenever they assimilated, if you will. But they obviously had positions of authority because Uriah the Hittite was a major leader in David's army. So I guess my point is that I think they assimilated wherever they ended up fitting. So probably a lot of them, as John said, they probably established relationships with the Israelites. And so a lot of them, would just say, you're just like one of the family. Why don't you just come along with us? And so that's how they did it. You can even say that. Let's see, who's the other guy? Was it
Caleb was a Kenite.
Caleb? Kenite.
Kenite.
Caleb was a Kenite. And if you look Kenite up, that name comes from one of the sons of Abraham after Sarah died. After Sarah died, Abraham married a woman named Keturah and had other sons, and one of those sons was, not Kenite, but whatever Kenite comes from. And so that's where, so I guess my point is there's lots of people in the Bible who perform, very vital functions who weren't Israelites by blood. That's a good discussion. Let me ask another question or two here. So a lot of these are simple questions, but I just want to make sure you know. What tribe was omitted from the census? Levites. We'll find out here in the next little passage. And why were Ephraim and Manasseh included instead of Joseph? Lisa?
I think it's because he's numbering the people that are actually going to get land. Joseph was given a double portion. So,
Okay.
both of his sons were getting the land.
I agree with you, except I would say it the other way around. The reason Ephraim and Manasseh were included and not Joseph is because Jacob made a special point before he died of saying, I adopt you as my sons,
Right.
Ephraim and Manasseh. You are going to be like Reuben and Simeon to me. In other words, you're all sons on an equal level. So he made Joseph's sons equal to all Joseph's brothers.
Right. But there are times when he's listing where Joseph is spoken of. When they list the Levites, then they just say Joseph. I mean, I'm just saying, there are times when they list the tribes in different ways.
Well, I'm sure you're right. So
I'm sure I am too.
Yeah, so since you're so good at that, why don't you tell me why they're listed in this order?
Well, didn't they start with Ruvain?
Yep.
Because they started with birth order.
No, it's not birth order.
Wait, never mind. It starts off that way.
It doesn't
It
end up
starts
that
off
way.
with birth order.
Yeah.
And then, but Shimeon, yeah, because Ruvain and then Shimeon.
So far, so
and
good.
then- but, I don't really know, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to pretend that I know everything because I don't actually know.
No, don't do that. I'm sorry, I'm just having you on.
I know you give me a bad time, but I don't exactly know because I know Shimeon was a big tribe, but I don't know why. Then Yehuda. I mean, a lot of these were birth order, but then they go to Ephraim and
Yeah,
Manasseh.
I don't really know the answer either. So I just thought I'd see if you did. John.
Isn't it the order that they surround?
Well, kinda.
Because
It is. Yeah.
I
We'll
know,
get to that.
like if they were to march out,
No, it's not that order.
it's not.
No. So that's
What's
okay.
that?
We'll look at this some more. Just something to think about. I don't want to beat that horse yet. We might still want to play with him. Okay, do you want to read would somebody like to volunteer to read the rest of the chapter? It's only a few more verses. John? Starting in 47.
The Levites, however, were not counted by the tribe of their ancestors. For Adonai told Moses, saying, "Definitely you are not to number the tribe of Levi, nor take the sum of them among Bani Israel. Instead, you are to appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony, over all its implements, and all pertaining to it. They are to carry the tabernacle and all its utensils, tend to it, and camp around it. Whenever the tabernacle sets out, the Levites are to dismantle it, and whenever the tabernacle is pitched, the Levites are to set it up. But the commoner who comes near to it must be put to death."
Okay.
Bani Israel will encamp, each man with his own camp, each with his own standard, according to their own divisions. The Levites are to camp around the tabernacle of the testimony, so that there will be no wrath unleashed on the community of Bani Israel. So the Levites are to maintain care of the tabernacle of the testimony. So Bani Israel did all that Adonai commanded Moses, so they did.
Okay, thank you. John?
So it is the order that it is around the tabernacle. If you start with Reuben on the south, Judah on the east, Ephraim on the west, and Dan on the north.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet, John.
You asked the question, why are they listed in this order? And I
Yeah.
just gave you the answer.
Well, we'll see. I have a table in the notes about the different tribes. I mean, you know, again, being a math guy, you can kind of notice some things about them. You can notice that Judah is the largest tribe with 74,600. But Dan was another large one with 62,700. Ephraim and Manasseh together would add up to 72,000, so that's about similar to Judah. Just something to think about.
What's interesting too is to figure out what their growth is at the end of the chapter.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when we get to the end of the chapter, we'll look at these numbers and compare them with the numbers 40 years later, and you can see that certain tribes were really not done well, and other tribes did very well, numbers-wise. Okay, anything else? You want to go on? Would somebody like to read chapter 2? Only 34 verses, but lots of names.
Oh, wait a minute. Who wants to read?
Janice says she'll read it.
We got 40 years to get through this, so.
How far do you want me to go?
Just all of chapter 2.
Well, what have I done?
Well, I tell you what, if you get tired somewhere in the middle, you can quit and
Take a
I'll
nap.
go
I'm going
over,
to take
yeah.
a nap in
Okay.
the middle.
Okay.
When you see me snoring. No. Okay. And when, I'll put my glasses on. And when any will offer a meat offering unto the Lord.
Nope. You're in the wrong book.
You don't like that one? Okay. Let me change. Sorry, I'm on a computer. It really is
Well, that explains
touchy.
it.
Okay. Let's try it again. All right. And the Lord spoke to Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Every man of the children of Israel shall pitch by his own standard with the ensign of the father's house far off About the tabernacle of the congregation shall they pitch. And on the east side toward the rising of the sun shall they of the standard of the camp of Judah pitch throughout their armies. And Nashon the son of Amminadab shall be captain of the children of Judah, and his host, and those that were numbered of them were 14,006. And those that do pitch next unto him shall be the tribe of Issachar, and Nathaniel, the son of Zuar, shall be captain of the children of Issachar, and his host, and that those that were numbered thereof were 54,400. Then the tribe of the Zebulun, and Eliab, the son of Helon, shall be the captain of the children of Zebulun, and the host and those that were numbered thereof were 57,400. And all that were numbered in the camp of Judah were 100,000 throughout their armies. These shall first set forth. On the south side shall be the standard of the camp of Reuben according to their armies. And the captain of the children of Reuben shall be Elizur, the son of Shedor, and the host and those that were numbered thereof were 46,500. And those which pitch by him shall be the tribe of Simeon. And the captain of the children of Simeon shall be Shulammiel, the son of Zurishaddai, and his host, those that were numbered of them, were 59,300. And the tribe of Gad, and the captain of the sons of Gad shall be Eliasaph, the son of Ruel, and his host, and those that were numbered of them were 45,650. All that were numbered on the camp of Reuben were 100,050 and 1,450 throughout their armies. And they shall set forth in the second rank. Then the tabernacle of the congregations shall set forward with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camp. As they encamp, so shall they set forward every man in his place by their standards. On the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim according to their armies. And the captain of the sons of Ephraim shall be Elishama, the son of Ammahud, and his host that were numbered of them were 40,500. And by him shall be the tribe of Manasseh. And the captain of the children of Manasseh shall be Gamaliel, the son of Padochuzor. And his host and those that were numbered of them were 32,200. Then the tribe of Benjamin, and the captain of the sons of Benjamin shall be Abaddon, the son of Gideoni, and his hosts, and those that were numbered of them were 35,400. All that were numbered of the camp of Ephraim were 100,000, 8,100 throughout their armies. And they shall go forward in third rank. The standard of the camp of Dan shall be on the north side by their armies. And the captain of the children of Dan shall be Ahizir, the son of Ammishaddai, and his host, and those that were numbered of them were 62,700. And those that encamp by him shall be the tribe of Asher, and the captain of the children of Asher shall be Pagiel, the son of Ochran, and his host, and those that were numbered of them were 41,500. Then the tribe of Naphtali, and the captain of the children of Naphtali shall be Ahariah, the son of Anan, and his host, and those that were numbered of them were 53,400. All they that were numbered in the camp of Dan were 100,050 and 7,600. They shall go hindmost with their standards. These are those which were numbered of the children of Israel by the house of their fathers. All those that were numbered in the camps throughout their hosts were 600,000 and 3,550. But the Levites were not numbered among the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So they pitched by their standards, and so they set forward every one after their families, according to their house of their fathers.
Thanks. You did very well.
Thank you.
The so John gets the prize for identifying the order listed. Yeah. Of
Well,
course.
I didn't realize that there was so there's like 3 orders already. Is that,
Yeah. Let's talk about this for a minute. I should have copied the picture that's in the book and put it up on the screen, but I didn't. So you'll just have to either look in the book or imagine with your head. It's clear here. It says on the east, toward the sunrise. Now, which way is the opening to the tabernacle? Which way does it face? East, right? So if I were to, I'm behind the picture. You're looking at the picture. So you got the tabernacle here, and east is this way, right, for you? Am I right? Huh? Okay. So on the east, the tribes that are camped there on the east are Reuben, Zebulun, and Judah. Sorry, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Yeah, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun on the east. That's what it says. I'm on verse 3 in this chapter. It says, on the east toward the sunrise. It says, on the east toward the sunrise, Judah, then Issachar, then Zebulun. Right? Okay, so those 3 tribes are camped on the east in front of the door, if you will, to the tabernacle. And it says, by virtue of the fact that it says in verse 9, all the men assigned to the camp of Judah according to their divisions, number 186,400, they'll set out first. So Judah is the leader of those 3 tribes, at least for the purposes of, quote, setting out, unquote. Okay? So you've got 1/4 of all of the Israelites there on the east side, but there's one of those 3 tribes that's a little bit, I don't know, in a leadership position, and that's Judah for the east. So then it goes on in verse 10, it says, to the south. Okay, down here on the south, the divisions are Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. Okay? It says, they shall, all the men assigned to the camp of Reuben. So Reuben's the leader of those 3, according to the divisions, and they'll set out second. Okay? So what I infer from this is kind of marching orders. Whatever we break camp, here's how it's going to go. The Judah and the 2 tribes associated with him go first. Then Reuben and the 2 tribes associated with him go second. And then down here in verse 17 it says, the tent of meeting and the camp of the Levites go in the middle of the camps. They'll set out in the same order as they encamp. We'll talk about the Levites more for the next 2 chapters. But anyway, so it goes Judah and those 2 and his 2, Reuben and his 2, and then the Levites with the tabernacle. Then it goes on the west side. The divisions are Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. Now, go ahead. Is there a microphone in the house? I would say.
Could you please turn that off? I find it interesting that Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are on the west because they're all related to Joseph, and you know what I mean.
They're all the same mother.
They all have the same
They're all
mother.
the same mother. Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. You can't say that for the other 3,
No.
the other 3 groups, because if you can remember, I don't have this down exactly right, but I know that Leah had 6 sons, and Rachel had 2, so that makes 8. So that leaves 4 in order to get the 12. And each of the handmaids had 2. Okay, and I always kind of get them confused. But the point is the only ones that are really in some kind of a cohesive order are the ones in the west. Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh. And those are all 3 essentially sons and grandsons of Rachel.
Of Rachel. Yeah. It's interesting too. I think, okay, this is where they camped, right? This is where they camped.
This is how they camped.
So when they went out, they were saying that the Levites went ahead of everybody. I don't think that's right. I think that Judah went.
I agree.
Judah went ahead of everybody.
That was at least 2 things in that little video that I didn't like. That was one of them. The other was putting Mount Sinai in the middle of the Sinai Peninsula. But this one, it doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't.
It says that in the middle goes the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's a nice thought, and I'm not entirely sure that it could be that when we read later on, we find out something a little differently. So I'm not going to go to the
Yeah,
go to the
because
mat
it's
on
one
this
thing
one
when they
yet.
start marching out.
Yeah, yeah. But in any case, that's what it says in this chapter. Yeah. So you do. How'd you do that? I'm impressed. I have to turn it back on now. Yes. Oh, good. Just do that. That's worth doing. All those things they say about you, John, they're not right.
It's mostly not true.
Yep. It was my fault for turning it off. There we go. There we go. So, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun are over here on the right, on the east. Reuben, Simeon, and Gad are on the south. Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are on the west. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali are on the north. So that's the way they camp around the tabernacle. And then we're going to read in the next chapter, the Levites are inside of those others. But this is also the way they travel too. It says in verse 17, it talks about, then the tent of meeting and the camp of the Levites will set out. And then it says, on the west will be the divisions of the camp of Ephraim. So it's Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin. And then Ephraim is the leader of that group. Ephraim is the leader of the group in the west. And then it goes on, it says, on the north will be the divisions of the camp of Dan. Oh, by the way, on verse 24, it says, all the men assigned to the camp of Ephraim, they will set out third. And then on the north is the camp of Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. All the men on the camp of Dan are this many, and they'll set out last using
So
their
who's
standard.
first, Judah or Reuben?
Judah.
Well, on the list, it's got Reuben first.
Nope. Read chapter 3, or verse 3. On the east toward the sunrise, Judah. Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and it says, all the men assigned to the camp of Judah, they will set out first. So it's,
I just meant in the list, in the table I have, it starts with Reuben.
well, no,
That doesn't mean that's
the
the
list
way
in
they're
the
going.
last chapter did start with Reuben.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the last chapter started from the bottom and went around this way, I guess. Actually, it didn't either. It went some other
It
way.
goes south, east, west, north.
Okay, go figure that out.
Like a Z or something.
Yeah. I bet you there's some deep symbolic significance there, and I don't know what it is.
We can make stuff up.
Yeah. Okay.
SCWN.
All right, that's a good thing. I like that one. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about that. I don't know. The thing that's interesting about this, aside from the fact that it makes fairly boring reading, is that it's very well ordered. You know, God's interesting to me because He doesn't. I wouldn't have put the detail in there. I mean, okay, you guys figure out where you want to camp. You know, go camp wherever you want to camp. He didn't say that at all. He says it's got to be this way, and it's going to get better in terms of organized. But you know, that's the way they marched. That's the way they went. Yes.
So there are a couple of interesting, or at least one interesting character going back to the first chapter.
Yep.
Nachshon.
Yep.
In my notes it says, in the line of the promised seed, the father of Salmon, husband of Rahab of Jericho, progenitor of Boaz of Bethlehem, husband of Ruth.
Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know that one. I have a little
There's a
tidbit on that one too.
There's a rabbinical story about Nakash got his feet wet. And when Moses says, let's cross the sea, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
He didn't get a chance to, wave his thongs. He just ran out and got his feet wet before the...
Well, let's see. The thing I have that this is almost at least as useful as that piece of information. Exodus 6:23 tells that Elisheba is the wife of Aaron. Elisheba is the wife of Aaron, and she was of the tribe of Judah, the sister of Naxon, and the daughter of Amminadab. So, anyway.
You could go through the translation as well if you want to.
That's okay. Yes, Tanya. Of course you can.
No.
Good.
But maybe totally wrong.
No, I doubt it. Go ahead.
So, chapter 2, verse 2, it talks about the standard or the ensign
Ensign.
of their father's house, or ensign,
Yep.
which my understanding is a flag. And then this indicates, like I said, these are my little footnotey things, that on those flags were constellations.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt
What's
that.
that?
I know there's a lot of, how can I put it? A lot of information associated with each standard. I know, for example, didn't the standard of Benjamin have a wolf on it or something like that? And a lot of the standards had Judah's lion, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of these things we kind of know about, but each one of those standards you can go find out about what's on them and kind of why it's on them. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there weren't constellations associated with them.
Okay. And then my footnotes, again, keep in mind they're footnotes. It makes mention of they are like in the rows of how they would be found on the breastplate.
Yes, yes, that's probably true. Because, the breastplate has the 4 rows of 3, and that's, I wouldn't be a bit surprised at that.
Okay. And it indicates like which group and which row. And
Yeah. I think the thing, like I say, the bottom line on all of that is it just makes me give God a lot of credit for being such a God of order. This is not some slap-happy thing. This is all pretty well thought out.
I was thinking it was interesting too that Judah is in the lead, and then Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are in the rear guard. So it's almost like they're 2 important positions. I don't know if one's more important than the other or whatever.
Well, what you're saying is Judah's leading the front and Ephraim's leading the
rear,
second half.
Right, the rear.
Could be.
Because in a way the rear guard is important too because it protects the back.
Yep, I agree.
What I found interesting is in the camp, Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin are on the west side, and the Ark of the Covenant is on the west side, and that's where Yahweh shows up
They're nearest.
in the Holy of Holies.
Yep, they're nearest it.
So maybe they were the most holy tribes.
Could be.
They're all descendants of Rachel too, right?
Yep. Okay, you want to go on? We get into the Levites now, and that's a level down in terms of detail. Chapter 3. Let's see. Let's just read the first 20 verses of chapter 3 and talk about those. Does somebody want to read chapter 3, verses 1 through 20? Okay, Lisa will read. Well, actually, I haven't read one. Why don't you let me read it? Okay, I will. Thanks. Chapter 3 then. This is the account of the family of Aaron and Moses at the time that Yahweh talked with Moses on Mount Sinai. The names of the sons of Aaron were Nadab, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Those were the names of Aaron's sons, the anointed priests who were ordained to serve as priests. Nadab and Abihu, however, fell dead before Yahweh when they made an offering with unauthorized fire before him in the desert of Sinai. They had no sons, so only Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests during the lifetime of their father Aaron. Yahweh said to Moses, "Bring the tribe of Levi and present them to Aaron the priest to assist him. They are to perform duties for him and for the whole community at the tent of meeting by doing the work of the tabernacle. They are to take care of all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, fulfilling the obligations of the Israelites by doing the work of the tabernacle. Give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are the Israelites who are to be given wholly to him. Appoint Aaron and his sons to serve as priests. Anyone else who approaches the sanctuary must be put to death. Yahweh said also to Moses, I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites in place of the first male offspring of every Israelite woman. The Levites are mine, for all the firstborn are mine. When I struck down the firstborn in Egypt, I set apart for myself every firstborn in Israel, whether man or animal. They are to be mine. I am Yahweh. Yahweh said to Moses in the desert of Sinai, count the Levites by their families and clans. Count every male a month old or more. So Moses counted them, as he was commanded by the word of Yahweh. These were the names of the sons of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. These were the names of the Gershonite clans: Libni and Shimei. And the Kohath clans were Amram, Itzhar, Hebron, and Uziel. And the Merarite clans were Mali and Mushi. These were the Levite clans according to their families. So let's talk about that for just a couple of minutes. So, first of all, Aaron is appointed by God to be the high priest, right? And Aaron had 4 sons. If in a perfect world, when Aaron died, which one of his sons would have taken over as high priest?
Eleazar?
Nadab. Nadab's the eldest.
Oh.
It says right here, it says Nadab the firstborn. Okay? But what happened to good old Nadab? He and his brother Abihu got turned into crispy critters when they decided to be creative in the worship of God, right? So that left him with only Eleazar and Ithamar. And although I don't say it precisely, I think Eleazar was the eldest of those, elder of the 2 remaining sons, and that's why he became high priest. So what did God tell Moses to do with the rest of the Levites? That is, other than Aaron and his 2 sons.
Count them?
No, well, yes, but what else?
He put them in charge of different things of the tabernacle. He divided them into 3 groups.
Well, we're not there yet.
Oh,
You guys keep getting ahead. Well, I'm
Oh,
asking this,
excuse
just the
me.
question from this one paragraph.
Okay,
What
which
did
one?
God tell Moses to do
Which
with
paragraph?
the Levites?
he said record the Levites.
No.
Which chapter? Where are you? What verse?
7. Verse 3, chapter 3, verse 7.
They'll perform the duties of the tent.
How
of
about
meeting.
verse 9?
Verse 9. I don't know. You shall assign the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are formally assigned to him from among the Israelites.
Okay, mine says it, I think, more pointedly. Mine says, give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are the Israelites who are to be given wholly to him.
Well, let me look up the word. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really messing with you.
Okay, the point being is God assigned the Levites to Aaron and his sons. Aaron and his sons are they're special because they are the priests. Levites themselves are not the priests. Aaron and his sons are the priests. The Levites report to Aaron.
They're the ministers for the priest.
Yeah. There's a definite hierarchy here. Okay, but to me, I think the neatest thing is why God did this and his rationale, his reasoning for it. John?
Well, this was plan B. It wasn't supposed to be the Levites.
Okay. What was plan A?
The firstborn.
Oh,
Period.
I don't know about that, but
It
maybe.
says it right here. 12. And I behold, I've taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of the firstborn that opened in the matrix of the children of Israel.
So what is that? It doesn't say plan B there. I mean, no, I'm sorry, but what I'm really getting at is the instead of, you've implied that the instead of is because what he intended to do didn't work. And what I'm saying is I don't think that's the case at all.
What Israel didn't work. They did the golden calf. That's where that started. That's why they became
Okay,
the
fair point.
substitute for the
Okay,
firstborn.
I can buy that, but let me tell you my viewpoint, and let's see
Okay.
if they're in conflict. They may not be. What I got out of this is God said, when I did the 10th plague in Egypt at Passover, I took the firstborn male of every family in Egypt, both the Israelites and the Egyptians. Now, the Egyptians, I just took them. The Israelites, at that point in time, every firstborn male became mine. And what I'm doing here is I'm allowing you to replace the firstborn Israelite male throughout the whole entire country with Levites.
I'm not disputing that. But,
Okay.
But the point is, was that the original idea?
I don't know.
I don't think it was, because the Levites are the ones that intervened at the.
Yep, you're right about that.
So I mean, it's not that big of a deal. We have substitutions. Well, we have the substitution of the Messiah, the substitution of sacrifices.
Of course. And as a matter of fact, you're right. It's not that big of a deal. But the thing I think that's nice to point out with this is it's another example of God providing redemption.
Well, the other thing too is, where are the Levites? Well, when America decided to become a sovereign nation and do things based on their rights from the Creator given unalienable rights, by what authority did they do that?
Boy, you make a good point.
Well, where's the Levites?
Where's the Levites? Boy, that's a
So
good question.
what I'm suggesting that they had the authority was, they went all the way back to before Mount Sinai, or before the incident at
The golden calf.
the golden calf, which is what caused the Levites to take up that position.
Okay. I can't argue with that, although it'd be fun just to argue for the fun.
Can I just say this one little fact?
Okay.
It's because actually it was the Gersons or the Gershons that took me to shul when I was little. And it always, no, but I love this part because I had no idea that they were actually Levites. Do you know what I mean?
Yep,
It
okay.
was meaningful to me later on, even though it was very meaningful to me at the time, too.
Sure, but you didn't
But-
have this background.
No, I didn't have this background. And then another people that influenced my life a lot were the Cohens, the Cohens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like two sets of families that were real extreme influences on me.
That's cool. Did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yeah,
Just a second.
When Moses go to Mount Sinai, and the people make the cow to celebrate him because they thinking he don't come back. All the people, worship then. When Moses come back, the only tribe stand behind him is the Levites.
Yeah, that's John's
That's
point.
why they receive, I think, the honor to be the priests and serving in the tent, and they need to be holy because they stay apart, they worship there.
That's what John says too.
The
I don't
team.
have a problem with that. Not that my problem would amount to anything anyway. Okay. I was just referring to the fact that he makes it clear here that he took the entire tribe of Levites in place of the firstborn male of every other
They were
family.
wholly taken with a W in front.
Yeah, with a W in front.
Not Holy, but
Yeah, as a matter of fact, mine does have the W.
no, I know that's.
And because they were less than the other people, the firstborn, then they had to
We're getting there.
okay, I'll shut up.
It's coming up in just another half a chapter or so. Okay, so then we go into the three. So we're a step down. We know we have the tribe of Levi, and now we're moving down from the tribe. I think it's to the clan. Okay, and there's three clans in the Levite tribe, and they are the Kohaths, the Merarites, and the Gershonites. That's because Levi, evidently, had three sons, and those were their names: Kohath, Merari, and Gershon.
My three sons.
My three sons. So those are the different clans that make up the Levites. See if there's anything else I want to say. Did I read that part about,
Are they still around?
beg your pardon?
Are they still around?
The Levites, absolutely. Do
No,
they know who they are?
I mean the sons, the 3 sons.
Well, let's see. Nobody, the very fact that you can find a whole lot of people in any metropolitan phone book whose last name is Cohen, who don't even think they're Jewish, would indicate things have gotten pretty screwed up between now and back then. So God knows. He knows where everybody is. He knows how all of this stuff traces out, but we sure don't. I mean, do you agree with that? Yeah. Sure.
Hold on.
Okay, sorry. So of the 12 tribes, I'm thinking of the 2 houses. So of the 12 tribes, you know, you've got Yehuda and Benjamin. Okay, I'm saying that wrong.
That's okay, don't worry about it.
Don't beat me up. Okay.
Let's gang
so
up on her. Okay.
You have those 2, and then you have the other 10, you know, one over the Caucasus Mountains got spread. Were Levi. Did they go with Benjamin? Did they go with...
Oh, the Levites were always dispersed. They were dispersed with all the tribes. Now, you will find, I think you could make a successful argument that a large number of Levites were probably hanging around Jerusalem because there was the temple. But there were Levitical jobs, if you will, all over the kingdom. And so there were Levites in the north and Levites in the south. And some of those Levites at the time, you know, after Solomon's reign and the nation split, some of them, the more, I don't know, I'll call them religious, even though that's a poor word, might have migrated south because they didn't want to be any part of this, renegade group. Some of them not. Many of them were into pagan worship at that time anyway. And so, but the Levites basically suffered the same fate as the nation of Israel as a whole.
So the 2 house doesn't really come into play, like 700 or so, even more, right? Years
Even
later.
more, yeah. It's well, let's see. The timeline is real important. It's fun to keep these ideas in mind. What we're talking about right here happened around 1500 BC, let's say. Okay, and then the numbers that I keep. I mean, this stuff. Moses and the 10 Commandments is like 1500 BC. 1000 BC was King David. Okay, and King Solomon and King David. I think it was interesting to me when I realized that if you took King Saul, King David, and King Solomon, which are the only 3 kings that the United Kingdom of Israel ever had, and add up all the time that they reigned, it's like 120 years. So they weren't around very long. Israel was not a nation very long. And when Solomon died, they split up. And so that was around 950 BC. And then 722, 200 years later, was when the Assyrians nuked the northern kingdom and has been seen no more since. So the answer to your question it would have been like
750
700 years, something like that, 750 years later that happened.
They didn't. They were a confederacy, if you will, before King David, before Saul and David and Solomon. They were ruled by judges.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand it, when there was a threat to the whole
They backed each other up.
congregation, then
Yep.
they would, a strong man would come up, a judge or whatever,
Yep.
and he would rule for a while. But it wasn't like, the big thing where they said, we want a king like the
Yep.
nations.
Yep, that was the big deal, and it's fun to read about that.
But there was still, I don't know if they were fighting amongst themselves very much.
They were, some.
During the time of the judges.
Yeah. But what John's talking about is, when the time of Samuel, when the people said, we want a king like all these nations around us have a king. And God, it's really great. It's fun to go read it because, God basically says, no, you don't. Because if you have a king, he'll do this, and he'll have taxes, and he'll send your kids to war, and he'll take your money, and he'll take your land, all this terrible stuff. You don't want that. And the people says, yeah, we really do. He says, well, okay. And gave him Saul. So that's great. Anyway, let's see. So I think we finished. I got over here with the naming the clans, and I don't want to say any more about that, but I wanted to see. Yeah, we got enough time to finish the chapter, I think. This is more numbers. Can I read it?
Where you at? What verse?
Verse 21, chapter 3, verse 21. Because there's not a whole lot of real interesting stuff here, but I just wanted to talk about it just talks about these three clans and what they do, how many there are and what they do. Let me read some and then we'll talk about it. Starting in verse 21, to Gershon, the Gershonites, belonged the clans of the Libnites and the Shimeites, and these were the Gershonite clans. The number of all the males a month old or more who were counted was 7,500. The Gershonite clans were to camp on the west behind the tabernacle. So that's over there. You can see the, okay. And the tent, its coverings. Okay, I'm sorry. The Gershonites were responsible for the care of the tabernacle and tent, its coverings, the curtain at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the curtains of the courtyard, the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard surrounding the tabernacle and altar, and all the ropes and everything related to their use. Okay? In New Zealand, they call that the Manchester. The Manchester is like, bed linens and towels and soft goods. The Gershonites were responsible for all of that. They're responsible for the tent, the big fence that went around the thing, and the tent and the covering, and the curtains that hang down, all the soft stuff, the ropes. That's what the Gershonites were responsible for. Okay? Then starting in verse 27, it says, to Kohath belonged the clans of the Amramites, Izharites, Hebronites, and the Uzzielites. These were the Kohathite clans. The number of all the males a month old or more was 8,600. The Kohathites were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. The Kohathite clans were to camp to the south side of the tabernacle. The leader of the family of the Kohathites was Elizaphan, son of Uzziel, and they were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the articles of the sanctuary used in ministering, the curtain, and everything related to their use. The chief leader of the Levites was Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest. He was appointed over those who were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. So the Kohathites took care of the furniture. Okay? The furniture being the table of showbread and the ark and the lampstand, all that stuff. Now the Kohathites, which clan was Aaron from? Kohath. Aaron was a Kohathite. So the priests, the clan that's responsible for the priests is also responsible for taking care of all the sacred articles. Okay? Does that make sense? I mean, to me, it just follows. John?
Who were the ones that rebelled? Was it sons of the Reubenites or one of the Levites? I'm really reading. I'm just curious if the names come up here.
I don't think so. Anyway, so we've got the Gershonites that take care of the soft stuff, and we've got these guys that take care of the really important stuff. Now, one of the things we'll read about, you kind of, I think, caught a glimpse of it here, but normal people weren't allowed to go look at this stuff. That's one of the things that's really neat about the tabernacle, or let's say the Ark of the Covenant. Man, there's only one guy that ever saw it, and he only saw it once a year. No wonder we don't know exactly what it looked like, So, and these guys would cover it. Let's see, the priests would cover it before their brother Kohathites would go carry it. Okay? Anyway, let me go on. Verse 33. To Merari, that's the third clan, belonged the clans of the Mahlites and the Mushites. These were the Merarite clans. The number of all the males a month old or more were counted at 6,200. The leader of the families of the Merarite clans was Zuriel, the son of Abihail, and they were to camp on the north side of the tabernacle. So the Merarites up on the north there. The Merarites were appointed to take care of the frames of the tabernacle, its crossbars, posts, base, all its equipment, and everything related to their use, as well as the posts of the surrounding courtyard with their bases, tent pegs, and ropes. So, the Merarites took care of the hardware. So the Merarites had to handle all the hardware. The Gershonites had to handle all the soft stuff, and the Kohathites handled all the furnishings. Yeah. She said construction, interior design, and furnishings. Yeah, well, that's okay. Anyway, the thing that was interesting to me, again, is the precise detail. And this is going to get any better. We're about done, but next week we're going to kind of go back over this one more time. But let me just finish up with a couple little things and we'll go on. We'll quit for the evening, I should say. 38, Moses and Aaron and his sons were to camp at the east of the tabernacle toward the sunrise in front of the tent of meeting. They were responsible for the care of the sanctuary on behalf of the Israelites. Anyone else who approached the sanctuary was to be put to death. So Moses, Aaron, and his sons sat right at the doorway. That's where they camped, is right at the doorway to the tabernacle. Now that's the courtyard. That's not the actual tent. You know, that grayish rectangle is the tabernacle is the whole thing. The actual tent of meeting is the smaller thing that had the big planks and stuff.
I found it.
Okay.
Number 16:1, Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi.
Okay. So there was, later on,
They
many
team up.
chapters from now, we'll get to a place where one of these guys was responsible for rebellion.
Well, what I'm pointing to is they're right next to the Reubenites, which is where the other guys. I think that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good
so
point.
They're conspiring then conveniently next to each other.
This was as a bad little den of iniquity down there.
It's those southern boys, you know.
Southern boy, yeah. Verse 39 says, the total number of Levites counted at Yahweh's command by Moses and Aaron according to their clans and including every male a month old or more was 22,000. Okay, I think we'll quit there. But did you notice the difference of who got counted for the Levites versus who got counted for the rest of the census? Who got counted for the first census? Males 20 years old and older. Who got counted for the Levitical census? Males 1 month old and older. Okay? Why the difference, do you suppose?
Well, one's destined for war, one's counting based on their war capabilities.
Yep.
And one is, I don't know, it's yeah.
Well, no, yeah. They're basically, it's counting the number of people that that can serve in the priesthood, if you will, in the Levitical priesthood. And one of the ways I've thought about this, and I'll say this more than once, but everybody had a job in the Levites. If you were of the tribe of Levite, you had a job. And in this case, you know, there's that fence around the tabernacle, that big white fence. Each one of those, it had a post every, I don't know, like 2 or 3 meters, and the post sat in a silver socket. And so there must have been, I'm sure there was 150 silver sockets. There's some old guy, in this case it was going to be a Merarite, because that's hardware. There's some old Merarite whose job was the 14th socket. And whenever they got ready to go, and they started packing stuff up, he knew that his was the 14th socket. So he went over, picked up his 14th socket, that was his to carry. And he carried it, and whenever they sat down, he knew where his went. It went between the 13th and the 15th. And he put his 14th socket down, and everybody had a specific job to do. And I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, we'll learn more about this, but they didn't start doing this job till they were 30, and I think they did it until they were 50, something like that. We'll get the exact ages. But they did that job for that amount of time. Now, before they were 30, they were, what do they call them? Whenever you're in training? Apprenticing. Yeah, they were apprentices. They had the job, and then after they had the job, I'm sure they were mentors. But anyway, this was a lifetime occupation for these guys. And that's what they did. That was their job. Kind of cool, huh? Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think this has got all the earmarks for being really boring, but Numbers is really a pretty darn exciting book. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we quit? Yeah. Margaret?
I should have mentioned this when we were going through it, but 12 through 13, when Moses is telling them that Yahweh is claiming the firstborn for himself.
Mm-hmm.
I find it so interesting at the end. He's got his signature in it, I, Yahweh,
Yeah. Yeah.
right there. It's like,
Yeah.
it begins in 11 with, and Yahweh spoken to Moses saying, so, okay, this is what he said, but then it seems like, okay, we got a signature here. As
Yep.
to,
Yeah. Whenever he says,
as to who these belong
I
to.
am Yahweh, whenever
Right.
he says that, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. And I like I say, even though, what everybody says about why God did this is right, I just think it's neat that he did it and that he had a rationale for doing it. He didn't need to have a rationale. He could have just said, look, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He says, this is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because the firstborn male of everybody's is mine, of every family. But
Yeah.
since we're going to use the Levites in a specific way, I'm trading those firstborn
Yeah.
for the Levites.
Yeah.
And that becomes more important next week.
Yeah.
Because God, being God, he counts them all.
Right.
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 Okay.
And also, back to chapter 1,
Yep.
the first list, you got all of Leah's kids listed first, and then Rachel's kids, and then the concubine's kids.
Is that really the way it goes?
Yeah.
Was Issachar and Zebulun, those were Leah's too? Gad wasn't, was he? Yeah. Okay. Great. Sure.
You know, I really appreciate that Yahweh is such a God of strategy and order, and I really feel like he set that up when in the first paragraph when Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu,
Yep.
they died before Yahweh because they offered strange fire, and so when I look up died, it means it's a pictograph of the mem and the tav, and the mem is a picture of the water representing chaos, and the tav is a picture of the two crossed sticks representing the mark or the sign. So I feel like that was the moment that Yahweh said, there will not be chaos, there will be order. And he's just set up his order, his strategies, and put everyone in charge of what they needed to do because they died. They
Yes.
died because of this chaos.
Yep.
So I really appreciate that about Yahweh.
Okay. Let me close in prayer. Well, Father God, thank you for your word. Thanks for showing us things in what at first glance appears to be somewhat dry. There's so much of you in here, and we just marvel at how involved you are with the details of our lives. I ask that you'd watch over us as we go through our lives this week. Help us to think on these things and other things about you, and help us to just learn how you'd like us to relate to you, how you'd like us to live our lives. Keep us safe until we meet on Shabbat. In Yahushua's name, amen. Thanks.
Thank you,
There's
Jerry.
still stuff to eat. My instructions were to clean out the refrigerator.